install him or we're all dead. This is the story I'm going to write from scratch, and so let me tell you a story. Stan Clegg was not cool under pressure. So he may have been the worst one for the other three guys to send out front to deal with Donald Brem. One thing Stan did have going for him was that he was smarter than the others in the crew. If he was really smart, he would have never agreed to rob the warehouse. Let's say to rob. Did I call him? All right, I called him Brem. So we're going to change his name to Brem. All right. If he was really smart, Frank says, I ain't just rich. I'm J-Coin rich. Well, there you go. There you go. All right. Oh, I just pitched to Lit Reactor writing an article about the end of Bazong. So if they choose that one, I may need to sit down with you and have a chat, Frank, about the legacy of that podcast. All right. If he was really smart, he would have never agreed to rob Mr. Brem's warehouse. Say store front and warehouse tonight. But among the four guys who started this thing, say Cam, Ty, and Sim were utter morons. That may be the weirdest thing I ever do for the Weird and Wacky Fiction podcast. Well, there you go. There you go. I try to pitch them when Lit Reactor asks for pitches all through the month. I try to kind of just jot down ideas of things that come to me. But of course, over the holidays, I never quite got there. Hold on, let me fix something over here real quick. All right. And so I kind of exhausted like my running list of article ideas for Lit Reactor. And they literally just asked today before I came on stream. So I had like a couple ideas, and then I made up a couple others, and then the Bazong one was just kind of one I threw out because on Armand's stream yesterday is the first time I found out that you were bringing it to an end. But what I find is that those kind of ones that I just kind of throw out at the last minute, those tend to be the ones that Lit Reactor really seems to enjoy. So if I were a betting man, I would guess that it was going to do. Josh Klemsky is a fan, so who knows, he may go for it. I'm about 100% sure he's going to go for it. So that's just how it plays out. Like the ideas that I really think about and kind of put together in advance, they're less interested in those than the ones that fly off the top of my head, which may mean that thinking is my biggest problem. So I'll try to do less of it in the future. All right, but we got a heist going here, so let's see what we're going to do next. But among the four guys who started this thing, Cam, Ty, and Simp were utter morons. Stan, this was it. He had to give the other guys time to vacate the back room. He hoped they moved fast. I would have leaned toward your article on the surge of bear-based fiction in 2022, but that's just me. Maybe that'll be next. Like when I forget to come up with some ideas for March, that may be the next thing. Exploding bears. Is this the new thing for fiction? Let's ask the expert, Frank Edler, formerly of Bazong, no longer on Project Entertainment Network. This was it. He had to give the other guys time to vacate the back room. He hoped they moved fast, but they needed they needed to cover their tracks too. I'm hitting every letter to the left of the ones I want, apparently. He hoped they moved fast, but they needed to cover their tracks too. God, he hated having his life in their hands. You're Stan, right? Stan's coat was... No, not coat. Stan's jacket was too thin for this chilly night. 3 days ago, it had been 81 degrees. Tonight, the low was 22, and it was already 28. All right. Stan had asked Alexa 4 times before leaving his house. Yes, sir, Stan said. He watched his breath rise in vapor between them with more fascination. Alright, let me fix something here. With more fascination than it really deserved. His teeth tried to chatter, but he stopped them. Cold night, isn't it? All right. Yes, sir, Stan said. He watched his breath rise in vapor between them with more fascination than it really deserved. His teeth tried to chatter, but he stopped them. Cold night, isn't it? All right. Don Brim just stared at the young man. Stan knew he must know. Why the hell else would he be standing out here in the dark cold? All right, Don Brim just stared at the young man, Stan knew he must know. Why the hell else would he be standing out here in the dark cold? Well, let's find out. Maybe he has a good excuse. Don wore a thick coat and a fur-lined hat pulled down over his ears. It was the kind of coat that would easily hide a gun. What the hell are you doing out here in this cold at this hour, Stan? That was a great question, wasn't it? Robbing the place was the most obvious answer. But he couldn't lead with that. Stan took out his phone like he was checking a message, but realized he was about to look up the temperature again. It was just a nervous reflex, apparently. Don's eyes were on him, and to Stan, they felt heavier than the cold. What if Mr. Brim had thought Stan was reaching for a weapon? He was not a guy to be messed with. So why had Stan joined in robbing him? I was told you got a message too? From who? Stan met Brim's severe eyes. He couldn't read whether this was legit curiosity or some level of anger. Don Brim had been born in Eastern Europe during the Cold War. He had a different last name back then. Stan had heard the stories more than once. Alright, hold on. But couldn't remember any of them. Alright. Don had almost zero accent. His voice was almost Midwest flat compared to the New York and Jersey guys that made up a lot of the organization. But the man still had that abrupt East Europe way of sounding pissed off even when he was happy or giving you a compliment. Kept Stan on edge. Kept Stan on edge the few times he was around the man. All right. Stan looked down at his phone again. Stan looked down at his phone again, but Stan looked down at his phone again. Oh no, I'm going to do the comma. But saw he had the weather app open. It was now 25 degrees, but clear skies. Sorry, sir. Let me see if I can find it. I think I got a call from a burner. No, I think I got a text from... Alright, let's not have him specify. I think I got it from a burner. You don't use burners, kid? Oh, sure. Sometimes. Oh, sure, sometimes. I'm not all that important, though. So, mostly I get stuff on my regular phone. Don actually laughed at that. Alright, let me do the new paragraph here. Don actually laughed at that. Well, alright. Oh, thank you for the resub, Clever. I really appreciate that. 12 months. Good Lord. I should really step it up for those of you who've been watching for 12 months. Alright, Don actually laughed at that. Well, we all have our parts to play, and they're important in the end. Thank you, sir. Stan's head started to turn back. Stan's head started to turn back to the door. But then he stopped himself. It might clue Brim in that something was amiss. Are we going inside? How was your New Year's Eve celebration? All right, well, here's here's something I haven't told. I ended up in the emergency room, partly because I was having some issues, some chest stuff, but it turned out to probably be nothing. But they had to run a bunch of tests because, of course, everything I got going on. Fortunately, I went in earlier in the day, so it was still daylight when I got there, and just starting to get dark when we left. So we got out of there before like all the insanity started. I'm pretty sure I got out of there without catching COVID, although not for lack of people trying to sneak in and give it to me. So I got home. It was pretty early. I got home before it was time for me to take my evening meds. Got a little something to eat, and I was feeling all rough. No, it wasn't too bad. On both sides of New Year's, it was fine. I played games with the kids. I got some writing done, got some reading done. Everything was kind of cool. But then as I was kind of eating, like I really just felt wrung out because they like put an IV in me, and they put like a nitroglycerin patch on my chest, even though like all the stuff said that I wasn't having any kind of problem. And nitroglycerin, especially the stuff that's like topical and goes straight into your system, just like gives me a headache and makes me nauseous. So they injected like a anti-nausea medicine intravenously, which that stuff is pretty strong when they're trying to stop you from getting sick. And they didn't give me any real like big painkillers, but when they decided it was gastrointestinal after putting the patch on me and giving me a headache and like the jitters from having nitroglycerin, they had me swallow this swirl of stuff to like coat your stomach, but part of it contained lidocaine, which is like a numbing agent, so like it numbed all the way down through my body, which made it weird when I was eating and stuff once I got home. And like kind of halfway through sort of eating a small meal, I was like, oh, I just want to go lay down. So about 10 o'clock, maybe not even 10 o'clock, I laid down, and then I was out for the night. I got up awake and refreshed in the morning, and everything was fine. So all that adventure went on. But oddly, I all through the years with kidney failure and everything else I had going on, I tend to end up with an emergency room visit like real close to the new year, either one side or the other. So I don't know why that is. It's not something I planned. I had gone through basically the entire year without a hospital visit. So just kind of odd. But other than that, everything was great. So I'm not sure how midnight went for you guys, but that's I got to bed early that night. So clearly I'm just old. God's had other plans for you. That's true. There's been more than one New Year's Eve where I've gone to bed early for one reason or another. Usually just because I don't have a lot going on. I don't want to be out on the road when all that's happening. But so that was New Year's for me. I didn't post about it because like I feel like I got enough. I put enough health stuff up online that I don't need people thinking that I'm always on the edge of dying all the time. They said thou shalt make a hospital visit. Well, I think they missed me. It's been forever since I've been there, but when I went back into triage, one of the nurses was like, I think I remember you. And she started pulling up my files and stuff because I went there a lot. Back when I was in kidney failure before transplant, I used to get like these kind of, I used to get infections in my leg where I kind of had some swelling there because of fluid gathering, edema, from just all the bad stuff I had going on. And so like, I would get that fluid in my leg, it would kind of get infected, I'd get a little bit of like a rash over that leg, and then I would get a fever, and then I would go septic. And so they were constantly like trying to fix that. So like as soon as I saw the rash, I would drive myself to the emergency room, and I would get there before I even had a fever, and I said, okay, I need you to pull up my records. I've been through this before. This is it. I have edema. I've, all the stuff I'd explain. I said I'm about to get a fever and then I'm going to go septic. So I need you guys to get on it before that. And they would always kind of look at me like I'm this crazy like hypochondriac or whatever. And they would take me back and run tests and stuff. Of course, I didn't have a fever. They would run the sepsis tests, and then as soon as the fever hit, they would start running the intravenous antibiotics that would kick it out. So fortunately, toward the end there, before I got transplanted, I usually caught it ahead of time, and they were able to treat me before it turned to sepsis. But more than once, I'd gone septic, which of course is very dangerous. But the doctors in the ER were always kind of floored by this fact that I walked in seemingly healthy except for a rash on my leg, and then would predict what was about to happen. Fortunately, after transplant and everything else, all those kind of problems went away. So, of course, I have to come up with new ones to go visit my good friends in the emergency room. All right, so all that to say, it was about an average New Year, I guess, for me. All right, so this crime boss says, are we going in or what? Stan made a show of trying the door, and of course it rattled in its frame. He wasn't able to snap the deadbolt behind him, but he did turn the catch lock before stepping out. He was a little smarter, say a little more clever than the other three thieves. All right, I know that business doors don't usually have those locks that you turn and can close behind you, but I'm going to have that going on in this story. I may have to clean that up again later. All right. I didn't bring my keys. I was told to just wait out here. Figured it might be... Okay, let me say that Stan said this. Stan didn't meet Mr. Brim's eyes, as he said. I didn't bring my keys. I was told to wait out here. Figured it might be just a pickup and not have anything to do with the store. All right. Maybe, Don said, cupping his hand and looking into the darkness beyond the glass. Stan prayed that the dummies back there... Alright, let me fix a typo there. Stan prayed the dummies back there didn't... Let's say wouldn't crack the store room... Good Lord, I am missing letters here all the time. Wouldn't crack the storeroom door. Is storeroom one word? It is indeed. Wouldn't crack the storeroom door and let the light out. Don pulled away from the glass, now fogged in a patch. Let me make these two different sentences. Now we'll have Don pulled away from the glass, now fogged in a patch from his breath. I was told the same thing. Stan did look at the boss after that. You were told to wait outside, sir? Don laughed a little again. Yeah, you think you're not important. Me sitting up on my big seat in things, and I still have a-holes telling me where to go and where to wait too. Huh, Stan said. Who sent you a message? Don looked to the boy with eyes narrowed. Stan swallowed twice and turned his gaze to the concrete between his feet. Oh, sorry. That's none of my business, sir. I got my call from a burner too. Some guy out of Perry's crew. I'd been waiting for a call. Not sure what they have you here for, though. Stan shrugged and shifted from foot to foot. Stan shrugged and shifted from foot to foot, trying to get warm and to think. Don took a step closer, and Stan fought the urge to take a step away. Are you with Perry's crew now too? No, sir. Well, actually, I get passed around a bit. I've been here at the store mostly over the last couple months. Alright, let's say Stan bit his lip. Stan bit his lip and cursed. Okay, hold on. And cursed himself inside his head. Stan bit his lip and cursed himself inside his head. This place was a front that did no real business. Stan literally walked around inside, starting and stopping click programs. I'll say repeater programs that created the false impression of work, if such a thing were ever checked. He mostly played on his phone or listened to music. What he also did was poke around the storeroom. Alright, that needs to be all together. Poked around the storeroom and saw stuff he wasn't supposed to. Stuff that had value. Then he talked about it to Cam, who hatched a plan and brought on two dudes dumber than him. The problem, alright, let me make this a new paragraph. The problem was that Stan had just revealed to the big boss his own connection to a building that was about to come up short, even if the other guys got out clean in time. He wished he could send some sort of message to tell them to leave everything. Stan might be connected to it and find himself disappearing when they did, even if he weren't caught in the act. I am caught in the act, he thought. I'm standing here right now, as right now the night the robbery went down. God help me. Even if he did text them. Or what was the last thing that said? Okay. Even if he did text them, even if he did text them, it would be an argument, which meant more messages. It also meant, even if he convinced them to leave it all, they would be in there even longer. Stan realized Don was staring at him. He couldn't recall the last thing that was said. Stan realized Don was staring at him. He couldn't recall the last thing that was said, or if the boss had asked him a question. He had to say something. So he went to an old trick. Okay, I need to fix a spell in there. He had to say something, so he went to an old trick he used when he had ignored his parents. I don't know. Weird. Don nodded and looked about the darkened streets. There were no lights near here. Stan wondered if that was by design. It is weird. I'm starting not to like it. Stan tried to swallow, but couldn't seem to get that process to work for him. Alright. Let me take out that comma because it doesn't belong there. Alright. Don put... I think I got a woodpecker outside. Are you out there, woodpecker? Yep, I got a woodpecker outside. How wonderful. So cold. Why isn't the woodpecker going further south? I don't know. Don placed a hand on Stan's shoulder, and every muscle tightened up until he felt his back give a thrill of pain. Let's say his lower back. His lower back gave a thrill of pain. This might be the end. All right, now what do we have him say? Son, who was it that called you, that contacted, let's say called you from a burner? Okay. Stan couldn't remember if he had said he was called or texted. He was thinking a text, but wasn't sure what he'd said aloud. What if the boss asked to look at his phone? What if they took him somewhere to ask him questions about a call that never really happened? All right. Stan licked his lips with a dry tongue and said, Tommy, Tommy asked me to wait here. Now he was in deep. He just picked the name Tommy because he knew 3 of them that worked right around him in the chain of command, near the low levels where bottom feeders like him dwelled. The organization was sick with Tommies. Everyone had a story. All right. Hey, Armand. Is that a bat? What are you sending to me? All right. Everyone had a story about some crazy shit a guy named Tommy got into. There were a ton of Jeffs involved in the goings on, too, now that Stan thought about it. Sometimes 2 Jeffs on the same job. Maybe he should have used the name Jeff. Which Tommy? Don asked. Of course he asked. There were a ton of Tommies. Stan opened his mouth and then paused. You know, I'm embarrassed to say, sir, but I didn't ask. I assumed it was Tommy Handel, but I should have asked. Not sure who else would be texting me in the night about work. Alright, damn. Now he said text. Was that, let's say, did he say call? Let me do quotation marks. Did he say call the first time? Alright, what is Frank doing? Is that a kitty cat? Of course it's a kitty cat, because Armand Rosamilia is a cat person now. And it's a little kitty cat because Armand Rosamilia has, I think it's 7 or 8 little kittens that he's rescued at his house. Wonderful man, great heart. All right, damn. Now he said text. Did he say call the first time? This whole thing was coming apart. All right, I'm back. Had to go feed Mary my kitten. Had to track down the bell as it's playing with your Funko Pops. All right, this whole thing was coming apart. He had succeeded in stalling Mr. Brim much longer than he thought he could. That was something. There are a lot of Tommies around, Don said. He took a step. He took a step or two out to the edge of the sidewalk and examined the deserted street in both directions. Both directions. Okay. Highway noise hummed back and forth from the raised interstate beyond the industrial park. Right. Otherwise, they had the place to themselves. Well, them and the 3 other robbers back in the storeroom. Okay. Tommy Handle was over Stan. Everyone was over Stan. Tommy Handle was over Stan. Everyone was over Stan. But Handle gave Stan most of his instructions. He was part of a crew run by a guy named Jeffrey. All right. Okay. Tommy was not going to back Stan's story, and he had no text to go with it. I don't like this, Stan. He started to shake harder as he stared at Don's back. Only a fraction of that shaking had to do with the cold. Don Brim took out a set of keys that could have rivaled the number of keys on a janitor's ring. He started thumbing through and approached the door. Approached the door with his head down. Now what? Did he try to stall him more? And how? Make up another text? Say he enjoyed the brisk night? Ask the man to go drinking or clubbing? Just give up and take the punishment here and now. Stan froze in place when he saw the sliver of light from the store room door now standing ajar. The three idiots had left out through the front instead of using the door in the back of the warehouse section. Stan wished he had never met Cam or the others. He wished he was already dead. Instead, Stan wished he had never met Cam or the others. He wished he was already dead instead of getting ready to die by the hands of really talented killers. Mr. Brim Stan didn't know what he planned to say after that. The boss looked up from his mess of keys just as headlight glare washed over and past the building. An old Ford, let's say an old silver Ford Escort, picked up speed as it passed them and continued on toward the exit, let's say the on-ramp. Alright, let's say Jesus Cristo. The three of them literally drove right by the front of the store as they got away. They left Stan too, but that was sort of secondary at this point. More light spilled across them as another engine roared through the night. Oh shit, Don said. This is it. Those little effers. He pulled a gun. I'll say he pulled a weapon. Pulled a weapon that looked like, let's say he pulled a weapon from inside that padded coat. The piece looked to Stan like a cannon. On a small grip. The approaching headlights danced over the metal of the barrel like a show. Alright. Don lifted the hand cannon in Stan's direction, and Stan just covered his head with both arms like a kid trying to turn invisible. Shots rattled off from behind him and echoed through the dark buildings. Let's say echoed around the dark buildings, like the music of war. Glass shattered in the unused second floor of the store. One of the tires on Don's Mercedes flattened with a concussive burst. Then the back window of the car exploded. No, let's say imploded into the back seat. Don spread his feet and crouched. He didn't return fire. At first. Don spread his feet and crouched. He didn't return fire at first. I don't need a comma there, but tracked the speeding vehicle, swiveling his aim away from Stan. Stan took out the keys. He recalled telling Mr. Brim he hadn't brought with him, and made a move to open the door. The glass face of it had miraculously, that is not even close. Alright, the glass face of it had miraculously survived the onslaught so far. The glass face of it had miraculously survived the onslaught so far. Even with bullets still flying and a spread of holes in the brick all around the door. Don finally worked his trigger. The weapon did sound like a cannon as it roared into the night multiple times. The offending vehicle lost glass and took deep depressions in its black side. The passenger side airbag deployed. More than one person screamed. Screamed along with the wheels as the speeding car veered from side to side as it passed. A long gun tipped out of one of the windows. Good Lord, I have of 3 times. Out of the windows. Out of one of. Okay, that's why I had thes. Good Lord. Out of one of the windows. And clattered onto the glass strewn street. The car hesitated as Mr. Brim kept his aim trained on it. But then the engine rose in intensity. Let's say the engine noise. The engine noise rose in intensity, and the car rushed away. You missed me, Don growled low after it. Stan dropped his keys and bent over to pick them up. Don Brim grabbed, let's say seized the boy by his sleeve and dragged him away before he could retrieve them. I need to make that the same paragraph since we're still talking about the keys. Alright, so let's bring that up. Don shouted, "Forget it. Come on. We need to get the H out of here. Right now." Let's say Mr. Brim actually opened the passenger door for Stan and shoved him into the opening before he ran around the front of the car, of the luxury car, missing around the luxury car, missing its back glass. Alright. Just sweep all that into the floor, kid. Stan blinked a couple times as he huddled inside the open door. There were a couple fast food bags in the fine tan leather seats. Stan did brush them into the floorboard and took a seat. The car was quite comfortable, even in the bitter cold. And after being shot at, Stan would have figured Mr. Brim to be the kind of guy who wanted no food or drink in his ride. There were several fast food cups resting in a number of different holders around the car, around the interior. The car started itself before Mr. Brim opened his door. He jumped in and was backing out before Stan finally got his own door closed. The back end shimmied as they tore down the road the opposite way of the shooters. Any chance you identified anyone in that? Okay, what kind of car would it be? Any chance you identified anyone in that BMW? Stan hadn't even bothered to identify the type of car like Don had done. The guy had been cool and calm as he waited to take his shots. Stan was still thinking about the keys he'd dropped. His house key, his house and car keys were on that ring. Now, it might be the police who questioned him about why his keys were there. He might be able to tell them he'd dropped them after work. But then how did he get home? For that matter, how did he explain to Mr. Brim about how he got there tonight? Let's say Uber, flying horse, Stan tried again to swallow, but quickly gave up. He croaked, "No, sir. It happened really fast." That's all right, kid. No one really gets used to being shot at. Happens a whole lot less often these days than most people think, from all those stupid TV shows and movies. Every wise guy that got out in the last few years now has a damn podcast or vlog. I think I got a bird on the outside of my window again. What you doing, birds? You pecking at my window? Michael, thank you for the follow, man. I really appreciate it. Getting me up over 200. That's something special, I guess. Every wise guy that got out in the last few years now has a damn podcast or vlog where they talk about mob days like it is some sort of video game. Effing crazy times, huh? Let's say Stan blinked as cold wind swirled through the car from the open back. They made a sharp turn through a stop sign, and the car felt like it was about to spin out from under them. Dawn wavered in and out of his lane. Don wavered in and out of his lane. Don wavered in and out of his lane. Damn flat tire. We'll have to deal with it later. I need to make a couple calls and then no, let's do it this way. I need to make a couple calls, but I want to pay a few people. No, but we're going to pay a few bad guys a visit while they might still think I didn't get away. We are? We sure are, Stan. We sure are. I'm not positive why they involved you. Must have something to do with the store. They wanted us both found there. Must have to do with that stash. I knew it was going to be trouble from the start. But I knew it was going to be trouble from the start. But wealth is always a risk. Yes, sir. Did you know what was in there? Stan glanced at the boss and then away. It's okay if you did. Yes, sir. I may have caught a glimpse. That's fine. They must have wanted to pin my death on you somehow. Tie it all in there to cover their tracks. Let's say Stan didn't answer. Don slowed down as he made the next turn. First, we're tracking down Armand, let's say. Um, maybe he maybe he maybe he called, or maybe it was someone posing as him, but it sure sounded like him. I'll know if he's lying when he tries to pass it off. Then we'll see what Tommy Handle has to say for himself. Stan took a shaky breath. Could have been another Tommy or someone else, sir. Probably. But I'm going to be... No, I'll say we're going to be... Probably, but we're going to be most of the way to the answers to the answers of who had it in for us before this night is over. Just wanted to stop by before I do some outlining. I've got a novel to write, remember. Yeah, I saw that, man. It's a good goal for this year. I think you're up for it, even if it is something weighty like a fantasy. All right, probably, but we're going to be most of the way to the answers of who had it in for us before this night is over. I promise you that, buddy. All right. Don slowed down a little more. I need to ditch this car for now. There's a lot up ahead where I can switch out for a company car. I'll get this one fixed up too. Fixed up later. Then we're going to fix all the traders. Stan gave a shuddering sigh. I know this wasn't what you expected tonight, Stan. Sometimes we're baptized in water, sometimes in fire, but eventually we all wade through blood. If we live long enough. All of us. Stan closed his eyes to stop thinking for a while. All right.